Let's get fired up today because we got an incredible author coming to the stage today. We got someone who's got the pizzazz, the skill, the expertise. We got the best-selling author of the book Live and Lead by Choice, Not by Chance, and How to Flourish at Any Age, Stage, and Season of Life. Please welcome to the Big Idea to Bestseller podcast, Jennifer Ledet. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jake. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm pumped to have you. I think our adventure has been quite fun. I got the privilege to talk to you before we started working with you, and now I get the privilege to talk to you after the experience with your new book, as everyone can see right here, Live and Lead by Choice, Not by Chance. So let's just start it off. Why'd you
Yeah.
decide to write this book? What's it all about? Give the audience a little glimpse into Jennifer Ledet.
Well, I was having a lot of conversations with particularly women, with friends, with clients, with prospective clients, and I was hearing a lot of the same stories, a lot of the same complaints, if you will, where people were saying, I've been climbing the ladder of success. They may not have said it in these words, but I've climbed the ladder of success to get to the top, and only to get to the top and find out that that ladder was leaning against the wrong wall the whole time.
Mm.
A lot of women were in a season of life where they were trying to figure out, what is my next chapter going to look like? Um, I certainly did not feel like I was the one to write the book. I say it was divine inspiration. I got that little divine tap on the shoulder, which I kind of brushed away and kept brushing away, and then it becomes an elbow to the ribs. And I know I've been around long enough to know that when I get those little nudges, they're going to become a 2x4 between the eyes pretty soon. So I decided to write this book, and I wanted to be able to share a lot of the work and the tools that I use with my coaching clients, and to kind of showcase that for women who might be interested in joining me in my women's group that I created as well. So it was divine inspiration, but it was also a strategic business decision too.
Yeah, talk to me. Let's talk about those two different things because I think that often one can lead to the other, and I
Yeah.
think they're very much tied together. So for you, was it the divine inspiration that came first, or was it kind of the inkling of I want to grow my business, a book around this particular topic could be helpful, and then the divine inspiration came in and said, "Yeah, you need to do that. That's the thing."
Well, great question, because the divine inspiration came first,
Okay.
and it came in, I'd say around fourth quarter of 2019. And so I'm just like, well, if this is where I'm being led, I'm going to go where I'm being led. And put together, I started marketing a women's group that we were going to begin in 2020. And we're going to begin with an in-person retreat.
Yeah.
And then we would go to virtual monthly meetings. Well, we know what happened in 2020. March of 2020, I was supposed to have the retreat in, I believe it was May, April, which we were not able to have. I had people who had registered. So they said, we want to move forward with the virtual meetings if we can't come together in person. So that's kind of how it began. And then along the way, I started getting that inkling that, maybe a book would be a good vehicle for getting this word out. This is actually my second book. So I wrote a book 12, it came out 12 years before this one. So it was a long time in between, and a lot had changed. But it was still the same process for me.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I want to dig into the business behind the book here in a little bit. I think that'll be fun for your particular audience because you do something that's really amazingly tied into the book and what you
Yeah.
do on the back end. So we're going to talk about that. But I want to talk about this is like you had written a previous book you mentioned about 12 years ago, and then you were working on this
Yeah.
book. So what made you want to enlist in our services and ultimately work with us as someone who's already gone through the process previously? What was it that attracted you to working with us?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember. I think I heard you on a podcast, and I knew for this one, I can tell you I evolved so much in 12 years. God hopes that we do evolve, right? And in that time, from the first book, I wrote the first book, and then I'm from South Louisiana, so we use a lot of Cajun French expressions. It's like I was haunt, and haunt means embarrassed. I didn't want to be seen and heard. I wrote this book, I put blood, sweat, and tears, and I didn't promote it. Now I am still selling it to this day. And that's another story. And I'm going to model what I did with the first book for the second, use that as a model for the second book. But for the second book, I knew I wanted this to become an Amazon bestseller. I felt like that gives a little bit of credibility, that gives it's an opening for conversations and for opportunities. And so I was determined that's what I wanted to do. And that's where y'all came in. And it was a very much an easy process, to be honest.
That's amazing. What made it so easy? Was it just the flow of it, the things you had to do for it? What was it, just that the
Well,
roadmap was dialed in? What for you
it
made it
was the
easy?
roadmap. I mean, you knew almost the formula. And of course, I tapped into my connections with y'all, the guidance that y'all gave me, tapping into my connections, creating my launch team. I had 100 people on my launch team. It was fantastic. And you really, it was a lot of fun because just seeing the people who were so excited and eager to support me in this thing. And then what was interesting is that when I came to you, I'd already basically written a book, and I was really wanting your help with the marketing and creating a bestseller. And in the process of editing, I had some snags along the way with some layout, design, and that kind of thing. And I was disappointed because it pushed it later in the year coming out. The book was actually published on November 19th. You would not believe how many people bought 3, 4, 5 copies to give as gifts for the holidays. So it ended up being a blessing in disguise. And I am really actively selling it now.
Amazing.
Um, and it just it keeps on going. And so the way that I'm using it, and this was my strategy, I wanted to do this. Between me, you, and the gatepost, I kind of suck at selling
Sure.
books back of the room. So I was already a professional speaker. I've been a professional speaker for many years. And I just don't like selling one book at a time in the back of the room when I've given a keynote. So what I much prefer to do is to pre-sell the book so that I have the meeting plan to buy a copy of the book for everyone in the audience,
Yeah.
which is a thing of beauty. So I just sold 400 books because I'm speaking, I have a keynote at a women's conference next month, and every person in the audience will get a copy of the book.
Yeah.
Uh, so that is my strategy.
I love that, and we're gonna dig into the strategy. You got me excited. We're gonna dig into the numbers here, but I wanna address something to the audience here,
Yeah,
because a book is not just a book, right? A book is the vehicle to all of the things, and in your case, a book, and why you worked with us, was to create a high quality book so that it could be leveraged for more speaking, more revenue, and more opportunities.
right.
And the first thing that you did with us is you wanted the bestseller because you wanted to take
Yeah,
yourself up to that next level. That's a huge thing. So the book, by doing that, you immediately leveled up your credibility. Now we're talking about using the book for speaking gigs, right? Same book,
yeah,
same effort, multiple different use cases. And so for everyone that's listening here, I really want to stress this, that when you write the book, doors open, opportunities start to come in. And let's talk about this a little bit, Jennifer. You mentioned you're a professional speaker and you don't like to sell the one-off books. That can be a
yeah,
great strategy for a lot of people, but you do something that I always recommend to people, which is, how do you increase your speaker fee from the minute you get the deal? And so
yeah,
what I want to do here, and if you're open to sharing numbers, amazing. If not, we're going to use fake numbers for the sake of this
yeah.
conversation. What is your keynote fee if you're open to sharing?
Well, as a member of National Speakers Association, I kind of feel like I'm bound to the guidelines that we have as professional speakers. But what I was able to do in this case, I was able to get my speaking fee. They were not able to purchase the book for everyone in the audience. And this had been my goal from the beginning. I told them when they booked me to speak, I want everyone to walk out of that there with a copy of the book. So what I did instead was I found a sponsor that was able to cover the cost of the book. And if you can be really strategic and think about who wants to get in front of your audience, who wants to have that brand
Yep.
exposure in your audience. And so for me, my audience is professional women. And so I went to a wealth management firm, and we know that women are making the majority of the buying decisions. Women are making the financial decisions in the family. Women are inheriting wealth at greater rates than ever before. There is a lot of research behind why a wealth management firm would want to get in front of my audience.
Yes.
And so what I did was I went to them and said, I'm giving you first dibs because I'm going to get a sponsor. So it's either going to be you or somebody else. And here's what we can do together to make this a great ROI for your investment. And they were all in. They
I
were
love that.
all in from the get-go.
I love this. And this brings up such a good point because I think this is such a great lesson for everyone in the audience to learn is there's always a way to make something happen. And so oftentimes
Yeah.
when you're speaking, you can get a speaker fee. That's fantastic. Now, if you have a book, sometimes they can buy books for everybody in attendance. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, we don't have any additional speaker funds to allocate. Well, in some
Yeah.
industries, there's a separate fund for educational materials. So sometimes
Exactly.
you can get your books purchased through a separate, different budget with the same
Yep.
organization. And then other times they can't do that. And then you do what you just did, which is you find a sponsor outside of it. And what's really cool about this, and we're just going to use a random number here because I want to respect your privacy on your speaker fee, is if you charge, and I'm telling this to anybody, $5,000 as a speaker, $10,000, $2,500 as a speaker, whatever your speaker fee is. I just want you to kind of see some basic math here of what having a book could do for this. And again, Jennifer, this isn't going to be specific to you. This is just going
Yeah.
to be a general random example that I've seen done before. Let's say to the audience, $5,000 speaker fee. Okay, amazing. Now let's say you sell, we'll use 100 books. We'll completely separate the example. 100
Yeah.
books is purchased by the audience. Well, if you sell your book for 1,500 or $15, you just added 1,500 bucks. Okay, that is 30% increase of your initial speaker fee. You didn't have to do anything other than click a couple buttons, order some books, and get them in the front of your audience. And now you have 100 plus people reading your book in your ideal market who then have a potential to hire you on a high ticket thing on the back end. And this
Yep.
an amazing, amazing strategy. And I love that you tied this in and you brought in the right sponsor. And so, Jennifer, when we do that, because now the audience has this example. For you, how do you connect your book to your speeches and to your talks? Do you tie them together? Are elements of your book in your keynote, or do you just kind of have an overarching theme that is correlated?
Yeah, no, it's all correlated, and I will actually have the book on stage, and I may, pull out something and read from the book while I'm on the platform, which just piques everybody's interest even more.
Yep.
Um, and so it's that they can't wait. It's almost like Oprah's favorite things, like look under your seat and you've got, people get really excited about this. And then I'll have a table at the back of the room where I'll also sell copies if anybody wants to gift or have multiple copies, and I'll be signing the books to people. So it gives me the opportunity to interact with them one-on-one, which
Yep.
is a great chance to exchange contact information. And then, and I might be jumping ahead, so stop me if I am, but I followed your lead 100%. And I have QR codes in the book that, there we go,
Yep.
people can click on to get some and to download some free resources, companion resources to the book. And then I'll also have a, QR code for another free resource in South Louisiana. We call it Lanya. It's just a little something extra. And so my goal is to really pique their interest, and that's a great lead magnet to capture their email addresses. Then I can follow up with them after the conference. Those who connect with me in the back of the room, I can follow up with them after the conference. It's just like I said, being able to say it's a bestseller, being able to have that book in their hands, it's a conversation starter.
Mm.
Um, People will feel like they already know me before they have met me in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. So many different use cases from one book, right? So many
Yeah,
different use cases. So let's talk about the book a little bit, all right? And you have a book that is really designed to help these professional women, right? And that's
yeah,
your main audience. But there
yeah,
are principles in there that can help anybody at any time. And so what I want to understand here is when someone's thinking about either buying your book or they start reading the book, what are a couple of your favorite takeaways that you've included in there?
yeah. Well, the reality is that we often set a lot of goals for our professional, our career, or in our professional world, but we don't our lives as a whole. And I think that's what has a lot of women in particular feeling unfulfilled. And so, yes, this book, I've had several men who've read it and said they got a lot of good stuff out of it. And I write the way I talk, so it's with a light, fun approach. I don't take anything too seriously, least of all myself. So I want to have fun. I want the reader to have fun. Everyone who's picked it up has said it's like they're talking to me. And so I'm happy with that feedback, because that's what I was going for. It's not War and Peace, believe me, ain't nobody got time for that. So it's a guidebook, where I am sharing the tools that I teach my clients. And
Mm,
BTW, all the tools that I teach, I use myself.
yep.
And I'll give you some examples in a bit, but it's very doable, very practical. And I encourage people to do the book
Mm,
as opposed to just read it. It's like a coach in a book, really.
yep. I'm just taking notes on that. I like that a
Yeah,
lot. You talk about do the book, not just read the book.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. And so give us some of those. You mentioned you'll give us a couple examples here. Talk to me a little bit about some of the exercise that you have people go through.
Yeah. So I'll share with you my personal experience as well. When I was in the what I call the messy middle of writing the book. It can look like a crime scene. At least in my mind, it's like a crime scene. It's so messy. And you kind of slogging through, and I'm not one of those people who can just hole up in a cabin in the woods and write a book.
Yep.
I needed to interact with my readers throughout the whole process. So I was literally having coffee and lunch and drinks and meeting up with people throughout the whole process that gave me the fodder for the book. But when I was really slogging through it, needed to get it done, I was like, I need an incentive. I need something to get myself, that I can dangle, that I can treat myself with at the end of this process. And so I did this exercise that I teach my clients. I've done it before, but this time I was it's a process where you come up with 50 things that you want in your life. And I'm not talking necessarily just about material things, but it's just things you want to have or create or be or do, experiences you want to have. 50 is a lot, like it's a lot. So when I started this process, 20 comes pretty easily. You can think about places you want to travel and so forth. But one thing that came up for me was I want a she shed. Now, to be clear, I have a lovely backyard. I have a pool in my backyard. I have a pool house in my backyard. I ain't got no room for no she shed. Okay. So that wasn't happening. But you don't filter, you don't censor, you just write down all of those things. And
Yeah.
I kept thinking about the she shed concept. And the answer was really right under my nose, or maybe I should say right above my head, because upstairs in my house, I called it the fraternity house for so many years because my two sons, this was their space. The previous owners had finished out the second floor, and it's just a big giant den, two bathrooms, and a big giant bedroom that they shared, and a lot of walk-in storage closets. I said, they're gone. They ain't up there. No fraternity house needed anymore. So I turned that into my she shed. Now, my 4-year-old little granddaughter kept coming over every day. She wanted to see Jin Jin. I want to see, and now I never used this term. She said, how's our art studio coming along? So you caught that, right? And then she came one day and she said, how's your man cave coming? I'm like, where did she get this? My daughter said, I have no idea where she got that idea, but she was fully dialed in to my she shed. And it is wonderful and I love it. So, one of the things that I'd like to offer is I have this exercise that I'd like to offer to your listeners if they'd like to go through the
Awesome.
process for themselves and see what comes up for them.
Yeah, that would be great.
So,
What's the best way to get that?
So if you go to jenniferledet.com/dream list. So Ledet, it's Jennifer, LEDET.com slash
Perfect.
dream list.
Got it.
And then I'd love to hear what comes up for people.
Yeah, and we'll link all that in there, and we'll get
Yeah,
to all the other links and everything before we wrap up
sure.
this episode. But that story was great, and I gotta say, there's many things in there. I mean, the fraternity house. I love the way you kind of created the visuals, right? That's
Yeah.
what great speakers do. Is you create those visuals, and I couldn't help. I almost started chuckling, saying she shed. And the fact that you were able to say it so many times without tripping over the words, that was magical. Okay, that was
That's
impressive.
amazing, right?
Yeah, that was a talent. But I love that, and I think I was just talking about this with somebody else. And I love the dream list, and I was just talking about this of the art of visualization and manifestation with the art and the act and the science of doing. And I
Yeah,
think that what you're talking about kind of goes hand in hand with that because you were like, I want this from that, right? Something that you desired
yeah,
from your exercise as something as a reward, as something that you aim to have, aim to be, aim to do.
yeah,
But then you also have balanced it with the act of actually doing the book and getting through it and completing it.
yeah.
And it just all ended up working that by doing the work, you found the space and it came to you. And that's just a beautiful thing because now you have the she shed, the art studio, the man cave, and you have the book on the other hand here. So this is great, Jennifer. And so for all the people that are considering, they're like, okay, I like your style. I definitely need to get my hands on these exercises. I want to read the book. Where can we find you? Where can we get the book? Where can we learn more about working with you?
Sure. So the website and you can learn all about the work that I do is jenniferledet.com. Again, that's LEDET.com. I also work with executive leadership teams and help them to all row in the same direction. I work on building trust and collaboration within the team. And naturally, again, I don't take anything too seriously. We have a lot of fun with these things. It's a great way to re-energize your team. And I also work with women's groups, obviously. And just to give another example of the way that I work with groups, I am conducting a women's CEO roundtable next week where we will, the association that's putting this on has purchased a copy for every woman in the room. And we will work through some of these exercises in that roundtable with a lot of interaction and discussion and where they're actually getting to apply and use some of the tools that I have in the book. I also do things for book clubs. A lot of organizations have ERGs, employee resource groups, for women in that organization. They may have a book club where they read professional development, personal development
Yep.
books. So I'm working with all different kinds of groups like that, where they purchase a copy of the book and then they get to have me come and interact with them and workshop some of these ideas. So all of that, you can see that on the website. Of course, the book is available wherever you purchase books online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those good things. And yeah, I'd love to hear from people and hear what comes up for them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And like I said, we'll get all of that linked up so that anyone who's unsure of how to spell your last name, it'll be right there. All you got to do is click the button. Okay.
Yes.
And it's been really awesome hearing about how you did the book, how you're using the book, and all the amazing people you've been able to help. From the first thing that you talked about today, which is climbing up the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. Right?
Yeah.
To getting sponsored to buy 400 copies of your book and getting creative. And then talking about the dream list exercise. I mean, these are very powerful things and stories. And I just want to say thank you for sharing all of this with our audience, because I think it's been very, very powerful. And I think it's been very practical. Like you said, your book is as well, very practical, but also easy to get through and easy to
Yeah.
understand. So thank you for being here, Jennifer.
Yeah.
And so,
Thank you so
yeah,
much, Jake. I really enjoyed it and I appreciate your help in getting bestseller status for sure.
of course, of course. That's what we do over here. So for everyone that just listened to this, I always finish with a challenge. And so here's the challenge today. There's a few that came to my mind as we were talking with Jennifer today, but I'm going to go with the dream list. I love this. So here's the challenge today. I want you to do the dream list exercise. And the first step to doing this is to go to the link down below and get the free resource so you can do it properly the way that Jennifer has intended it to be done. And then when you're
Yeah.
doing it, share with us what comes up for you. What number did you get stuck at? Was 50 really easy? Let us know.
Yeah.
We would love to hear from you and help you and support you, because life is a beautiful thing. And the things that you desire are just on the other side of putting in a little bit of work and calling it into existence. So
Yeah.
that's the challenge. This is the episode. I'll see you guys on the next one. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Jake.